So it's that time of year again where we have our consultation on the budget for the year 2025. And we're here at Bonnet Government School for the parishes of St. John, St. Mark, and St. Patrick. With us tonight, we have the Deputy PS in the Ministry of Finance, Mrs. Siobhan Britton Spencer, or Spencer Britton, right? And Telesford, sorry. Yes, Mrs. Britton Telesford. To members of the budget unit in the Ministry of Finance and the policy unit, my name is David Hopkin, a policy development officer in the Cabinet Office and a resident of St. John, along with other members of the communities of St. John's and St. Mark's. So let's stand for a word of prayer before we get into the meat of the matter this evening. So I'll ask Mr. Cordell John to lead us in the prayer.
Okay, let's pray. Let's pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you, Lord, for your blessings. We thank you that you have allowed us to be here at this time. We recognize your presence with us. You said, Lord, that except you build and except you keep, our labor is but in vain. We pray, Lord, that you will be with the presenters and help us, Lord, that we may understand and, Lord, that we make meaningful contribution in Jesus' name. Amen.
So thank you very much, Mr. John, for leading us in prayer. And those of you looking at online and those of us here, just to give us an idea of why we're here tonight. The first is to synthesize, to provide an overview of Grenada's economic performance for the first half of 2023, prospects for the short and medium terms, and an overview of government's strategic focus areas for 2024 budget. The second one is to empower or to explain the budget preparation process. And the third, to solicit or to hear from you, the stakeholders, our citizens, to get your views and opinions on challenges that we need to address, priority areas and solutions pertaining to issues related to 5 broad focus areas of the government: empowering our people, transforming the economy, environmental management, governance and institutional rebuilding, and foreign policy. So on behalf of the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance and the team at the Ministry of Finance, I'd like to say a special welcome to all of you, and we hope that this session tonight would be a very productive one for all of us, and in turn will have improvement in the lives of our citizens here in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. So at this point, I'd like us to put our eyes on the screen. We'll have a short video that will give us an overview of some of the areas that I mentioned in the objective. The presentation of the budget process, government's economic performance for the first half of the year, prospects for the short and medium term, and overview of government strategic focus areas for 2025 budget. Let's look at the video now.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Inside Finance. As we approach the preparation of the 2025 national budget, the government of Grenada is conducting a series of consultations to ensure the budget reflects the needs of all citizens. Joining me today is none other than the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mike Sylvester. In today's program, we will be discussing the 2025 national budget and how the public can get involved. Mr. Sylvester, welcome to today's program.
Thank you for having me. Good day to you and your audience.
Let's start off with the basics. What is the national budget?
Well, the national budget, also known as the Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure, is a financial plan that outlines government's expected revenues and expenditures for a specific fiscal year to help it achieve its agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvester. Budget consultations are a critical part of the preparation process. But for those who may not be familiar, what exactly are these consultations and why are they important?
The budget consultation process is all about engaging with the public, businesses, civil society, and other stakeholders to gather feedback and insights. We want to ensure that the nation's budget reflects the priorities and needs of the country, not just from the government's perspective, but from the people's as well. By opening up the process, the government is better able to allocate resources and make decisions that can have a real impact on communities.
So how do these consultations actually take place? Is it just a series of meetings, or are there other ways for people to participate?
We're using a multi-pronged approach. Yes, there are formal consultations with key stakeholders, but we're also leveraging digital platforms to engage a broader segment of the population. We've launched an online portal on our website at www.finance.gd, where citizens can submit their proposals and ideas. Additionally, we'll be hosting public forums throughout the country, allowing people to voice their concerns and suggestions directly. This way we ensure that the budget represents the diversity of needs across the country.
It seems the government is trying to make this process a lot more inclusive. But what are the key areas where public input will be most critical for the 2025 budget?
The main areas where we're looking for input includes recovery and reconstruction efforts in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, education and skills development, health and wellness, housing, youth empowerment, job creation, renewable energy development, and cost of living measures, to name a few. The government has made progress in many of these areas, but there are still challenges. And we believe citizens on the ground have valuable insight into how we can improve. For example, in relation to the cost of living, we're asking what more can the government do to reduce the cost of living? Additionally, what more can be done to build resilience in our economy?
One of the concerns people often have is whether their feedback will actually influence the budget. How can you ensure that the public input is not just symbolic?
That's a great question, and I understand why people may feel skeptical. In the past, consultation processes may have seemed distant, but we're changing that. We are working on a feedback mechanism where we can track how ideas are considered. All consultation reports and the Ministry of Finance recommendations will be submitted to the Cabinet for consideration and to inform policy decisions. For example, in the 2024 budget, the no exam upgrade and reducing the age to obtain a D-class license were derived from budget consultations.
Wow, that's reassuring. Now let's talk about some of the challenges the government might face during this process. There are always competing demands. So, how does the government plan to balance the public's input with its fiscal constraints?
It's definitely a balancing act. We need to be realistic about what we can afford, given the country's fiscal position. The key is prioritizing. Not every idea or suggestion can be implemented immediately, but we need to ensure that the most pressing needs are addressed first. We also need to maintain our commitment to fiscal responsibility, which means making tough decisions on where to cut back or how to increase revenue without placing too much burden on the average citizen.
That brings me to a point about revenue. As you gather input, is the government also open to ideas about how to generate more revenue? Especially considering the rise in demands for spending on things like infrastructure and social programs.
Yes, absolutely. We're looking for innovative ideas not just on spending, but also on revenue generation. In fact, we've been asking for suggestions on how to broaden the tax base in a fair way, or introduce new forms of revenue that won't negatively impact low and middle income households. For instance, we have received suggestions about closing potential revenue loopholes in the yachting sector.
Referring back to renewable energy development, is the government open to feedback on this?
Yes, renewable energy is a major focus for 2025, and we're keen to hear from the public on how the government can accelerate renewable energy development in our electricity and transport sector.
This all sounds very comprehensive. So tell me, how did the economy perform this year?
2023 was a good year for Grenada. Our economy grew by 4.7%, which is strong. For 2024, we're estimating growth of 3.9%, driven mainly by tourism, wholesale and retail trade, and manufacturing. However, sectors like agriculture and fishing were affected by Hurricane Beryl. But the good news is that rebuilding efforts will help boost these areas in the coming year.
Earlier on, you indicated that the cost of living will be a key focus area for the 2025 budget. At this time, can you tell us about the general trend in prices?
Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices of goods and services in an economy rises over time, leading to a decrease in the purchasing power of money. While inflation has continued to decline, the price of food remains high. The government will continue to monitor inflation closely and take action as necessary to keep inflation low and stable.
And what can you tell us about government's finances?
Well, government's fiscal position was negatively impacted by the passage of Hurricane Beryl. However, government's finances remain strong. The relief provided on free barrels and building materials will negatively affect revenues, while the increased spending related to Hurricane Beryl recovery will result in higher expenditure. That notwithstanding, the government will be able to meet all its obligations in 2024.
Before we wrap up, what is your message to the public as the government prepares the 2025 national budget?
My message is quite simple. This is your budget. The decisions we make today will affect our economy, our communities, and our future. We need your input to make sure we're addressing the real needs of the people. I encourage everyone to participate, whether by attending a forum, submitting your ideas online, or engaging in discussions with your community. Every voice matters.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvester, for sharing these insights. It sounds like the government is really committed to making this a people-driven process. And that concludes our discussion on the upcoming 2025 National Budget Consultations. If you want to get involved, visit the government's online portal or attend one of its public forums near you. This is your chance to help shape the future of our country. Thank you very much for watching and have a good night. See you next time on Inside Finance.
So thank you very much for that video. I hope you found it very informative. Yes, Mr. Cordell. Yeah, yes, Mr. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't meant
Let me
for-
tell
for
you,
people
the
like
last
you.
time Clarice had something here, I came and there were PA system around Victoria, and that was just on a few months ago. There was a PA system, so why are you telling me that that is old time thing? That don't make sense. Well, I don't know,
Okay, so we
but I'm
recognize
just
that
saying.
this has been a shortfall, not just a shortfall, but a big, should I say, disappointment in terms of the um, PR. But I wouldn't say that nothing was done. It just wasn't effective. We may have to look at finding more options for publishing the information and inviting persons to come. And we do accept the point of using the PA system. It is still a way of communicating to the community. So we will take that on. Um, so we are here tonight, and in spite of the limited participation and the PR issue, we can share our views as to what we think should go into the budget, what are the priorities, your ideas on the priorities for the budget, as well as ideas for the government to improve the livelihoods of our citizens, generally speaking. So we do accept the point that you've made, and we do have the PS here, the deputy PS, and she will take the information back to our office and make the necessary arrangements. But as the video did indicate that this is not the only option for sharing information on the budget. We do have a website, I think it's www.finance.grenada. You can go on there and put in your contribution as well into the budget that can be considered. So we're gonna have some sharing. And the reason why we have that setting is that we would all be able to talk to each other about those issues that we want. If we had to open up the screen to make the circle bigger, we would have done that. But we did this, that we wouldn't have to be so far apart from each other in sharing. All right? So at this point, I want to invite you to share your views as to what are some of the areas that government should include in the budget, some maybe suggestions for growth, and suggestions to help improve lives in Grenada. So the floor is open to you to make that point at this point in time. Okay, so we have one speaker. You can just identify your name and you can start speaking.
From the ground up, I've seen many governments perform while I'm still alive. And even though I support administration, I have the right as a human being, as a citizen, to voice my opinion when I see things are not in the best interest of the people. So where I stand, based on where you stand, you see it from a different angle. Because David stood on a roof and he saw the man poor wife and he take advantage of the situation. But I believe that, you know, the ground is important to stand, because when Moses stood on the ground where the fire was burning, the fire wasn't belonging to Moses, but it affected him in a direct way. As a parish, over the years, I've seen our people in St. Mark seem to always get in the blunt end of the stick. By that I mean, our standard of living here has not been, in my opinion, as the best way. Every man don't have the same length of legs to run. I cannot run 400 meters as Kirani, but I can choose to run in my lane. At the end of the day, I need to finish the race. So I can see at this moment, while the government would have made some strides, so to speak, but I've seen weaknesses when it comes to the common man. I can hear the bawling. Yesterday I had to go and buy 2 pounds of chicken for one of my colleagues, you know, because the hardship on the ground here is very hard, it's very telling. If you walk where I walk, you will understand me from that perspective. So I think the government needs to focus in St. Mark's on more sustainable. What they can do, yes, sustainable. I don't know if they listen, you know, because sometimes where you're standing, your head's blocked. If you're benefiting, you don't have nothing to say. Some people bawling with their mouth closed. But I like to be very realistic. Yes, realistic. It's not easy outside it. In all my life living, I spend money to survive daily. And it's only at this point in time, as you see here, every cent I spend here have to be recording it to account myself. Because priority is one thing, but when you back it against the wall, when the reality hits home, it's a different story. Yes, I realize people don't have their priority right, because the same people who ball, I see them running in blast. I see them other places which could be suggestive, but I don't want to be judgmental. When I pass through an area like Guav, I have friends down there. I have people that I have personal contact with. And when I see the atmosphere down there on the street, I'm saying that the government had to awake. Yes? Because, I am saying to you, when you see breeze refuse to blow in Guav, economic breeze refuse to blow in Guam, it's an indication. If Guam dead, Grenada dead. Yes? So I give the government thumbs up. Even the initiative with the farmers at the moment, with the support for the farmers, I give them 110%. But how far this decimal, how far is it going to touch? I want to see people being touched. I want to see a man with a fishing line holding his own fish so that he don't have to beg somebody for a fish. Let me zero in on one of the things I really like to see happen. I see a police officer sitting next to me here on the opposite end, and I don't want it to be interpreted because she here saying that. The police station, we in budget cycle, excuse me, not a list. Cut out that for me, I don't write in for. I'll tell her, yeah. So I'm saying that to say that if you have an environment where police is at risk and you want the police to give full capacity in service, then I'm saying no. If you go inside there yourself, Mr. Hopkins, and you see the molds inside it, if you go and you see the kitchen where the police have to be operating, I'm saying to you, Mr. Hopkins, no. Next budget cycle, I would like to see the police in a better position. Our government come and they go, and government cannot fulfill all the needs or the requirements of every situation. But I believe over time, and it's not the first time I'm making this request, for the police in the Victoria Police Station to be in an environment that is human-friendly. Yes? I think the government, I invited the Prime Minister sometime to come and see for himself. Don't stay remotely. The police need better conditions. Because if you want them to survive and you want them to perform, I believe they need to have a better situation to them. I'm concerned about the youths also. Yes? I am very, very much concerned about the youths. I suggested some time ago, even to the magisterial decisions, that you can look at alternative punishment in terms of rehabilitating some of these young people. I don't know, where we're heading for. The churches, the churches should be one of the pillars in the community, apart from government, to help. But when you go to the churches, you've seen them virtually empty. So there is this saying that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any man. And if the church is not, helping in the areas, or I'm not saying they're not helping, but if the young people directly, if you look at beginning, look at my dear sister there. I know her from my baby. And I'm very proud of you, Mrs. New surname. Yes, new surname. Very proud of you. Yes, very proud of you. I'm not telling you that because I see you sitting here. I see that you grow up in the area. You don't have to born in Guav and stay in gun battle. Yes? You don't have to stay in gun battle. I'm very proud of you. And I want to give you a very, very applaud here tonight. Big, big applaud. And when I see qualities like you who grow up right in my area, right here in my environment, and you could make a difference, I commend you tonight. So basically what I'm saying is, I wish that the government, I don't know who's listening for them, I don't know who's seeing for them. Some strides have been made, but the noise on the ground is not good noise. Not good noise, not good noise. Yes, not good noise. There is real hardship on the ground here. Hardship. And if the working man who is working is in poverty, it's not a good indication. I'm still sticking to priorities because some people don't have the priority right. You can't spend what you're not earning. Yes? So the government could be making attempts to. We have lost some golden opportunities over the years. We had chicken farm. We don't get feather, we don't get wings, we don't get nothing, then we come to shrimps. I believe these projects are never implemented. Could have buffer, could have cushioned the effects of the unemployment situation that we experience today. So I'm saying to the administration, there used to be middle class, there used to be upper class, and there used to be those poor and vulnerable. There are safety nets, but I don't believe the nets at the moment is capturing or catching the real poverty. So in redesigning and probably reallocating, I really want to see the poor man cry ease up somewhere along the line. Because cost of living, brother, whereas basic things, every time you face the shop or you face the supermarket, what you used to buy for $10, you have to find more money to be buying basic commodities. Yeah? So cost of living is one of the areas. I don't know what more they could do in that area, but cost of living is not easy. When I say cost of living, I'm saying it in a passionate way. Oh God, about him. You hear? Good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. And you raised some very, very important points, and we have taken notes of them. And we would see as much as possible to address those concerns. Anybody else?
In our society. And you look at the laws that we had, that was on the books. Most of them come from the Bible. Most of the laws. But now we ain't bothering about God too much. I think the government is doing a good job. I think so. But there's a issue with tithing, biblical tithing. Everybody contribute towards that. That's God's system. And that works real well. You know, I was listening to the election, to some debates the last time when Ben Carson was running for the Republican, and he had an interview, and he talked about that, you know. And that system could work in any society. Everybody make a contribution. Because not about you get small, you give small. You get big, you give big. That's how God's system is. And I think the same thing could work here. $10 and $1,000. So I think this is a system that we need to look at to get revenue. Yes, we know we have poor and vulnerable and whatever, but we have to let people know, look, this thing is about all of us, and all of us must make our contribution in some form or the other. I always say, God knows how society should work and run, but sometimes God become irrelevant. We have so much sense now that we don't want nothing what God say. We're putting things in our own way, and we're creating a set of problem for ourselves. 1, 2, revenue. We cannot, the government should seek to, not seek, but should allow vehicles to come in. You see, 10 years, I think 10 years is, at least it should be at least 15 years. But when that happens, I know the government make a lot of revenue from vehicles. We have to control people. I mean, people have choices. We have to maintain our roads, and we know what kind of place we're living in. We have If it's not down there, it's up the rocks, up precipice. But it will have to be maintained. I think that there should be a toll that will cause people driving on the road to consider, should I go with my vehicle from point A to point B, or should I go with some other person? So you're not restricting the amount of vehicles that are coming in, but you're putting things in place so that people will maybe carpool. Me and you in the same area, working the same thing, we could say, okay, well, I'll just use my car today, you ride with me. And that funds could go towards, you could put that towards road upkeep. So I think this is an area where the government could earn some revenue. You know, whether you put it on a bridge, you say, well, if you're living from here to go to St. George's, you have some, when you reach in St. George's, because we complain all the time that, look, we have too much car in the place, too much vehicles in the place. The government don't want to put restrictions, but at least do something that could cause people to think about, sometimes they don't really have to, sometimes just dry ride, you know. And then we have to talk about pollution and stuff like that. So I think this is that area we could look at to increase revenue for the purpose of upkeeping our roads.
Thank you for that. I just want to ask you a question with regards to the issue of the 10%. We already have income tax, right? Okay. So I was saying that we do have income tax already in the system. Are you saying change the approach that it is now to everybody pay income tax at 10%? If you earn little, you pay 10% of that. If you earn a lot, you pay based on the amount. Rather than where it is now, I think if you reach a certain threshold, you pay income tax and above. Yeah? Yeah?
Yes.
If you, yeah.
Yes, I know that if you reach a certain amount, then that's when you're paid. But I think if you have to revise those laws, I think every person in Grenada should be a contributor to the economy. Okay, all right. Whether government giving you or you getting from wherever, you should be contributing. So that should be across the board. Everybody should be contributing.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I think we have to do something about the transportation system, of course. Because in Victoria here, sometimes when I take the bus, I have to go to St. George's and I have to take the bus. I have to be pushing to get in, you know, to get a bus to come here. And I have to make sure I get to the terminal by 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. This is something, you know, that has to get worked on. I thought the government was doing something about that some time ago. They said they had something, but I haven't heard anything. The other thing with transportation is the bus drivers. You all have to put something in for the bus drivers with the music that they play. When you're traveling in the bus, you have school children in the bus, and the sort of music they're playing, it's ridiculous. Every time, most time I'm driving in the bus, I have to talk about that. I don't know how you all going to, the government, what they're going to do about that, but it's getting out of hand. That is something that bothers me a lot.
Just want to comment as a police officer, former police officer, want to comment on this aspect. Now we have laws. It's sad that our the police is really not effective. No offense. I was there when you try to do what you're supposed to do, believing that reason is the strength of the law. I believe that. So sometimes you don't take action, the same action with everybody. A man, you might say a man committed an offense, but he might have a good reason for, so you have to listen. But our officers are not doing what they're supposed to do. Because there is laws that you cannot play music on a vehicle over whatever. The laws is there. The laws, they give you permission to take the system, take the music, take the amplifier. And apart from that, there's also the noise controller, which I think need a little upgrading. But the laws is there. In that particular instance, you're talking about the music on the bus. You have music on bus that is obscene, right? And there is a law to deal with that. The law says anybody make use of obscene language, you don't have to use obscene language. If you make use of it, by you allow your vehicle to play it, you are committing an offense. But we seem to be the police. I mean, I don't know. We're taking a kind of lay back because we want to be Mr. Nice guy, you know. But you cannot be an effective police officer, and everybody wouldn't like you. Everybody would not like you, and if everybody like you, check yourself. Something wrong with you. You're not working.
Before you, the deputy has to make a point. Go ahead.
Okay, so just to comment on the two contributions on the transportation issue, right? So a lot of people are asking, or we have heard before, people asking coming back to the age of the duty to be able to 15 years or something like that. But the reality is, you see the congestion on the road, even with the ban in place, and even with the high cost of vehicles, they're still coming in and reckless. And if you remove that ban on increase the 15 years, it will become worse. That's one thing. But we understand that the reason that people are importing the vehicles to that extent is the fact that we don't have a properly functioning transportation system, as you just said. That you have issues with getting buses that certain hour, the quality of the ride they get to, music and all of that. So that's why right now we have a transportation board in place, and that is really what they're handling. So it may take a little time, but I just want to be working on it. And because we understand that that's an issue, and that is feeding into the vehicle issue, why people are calling for more vehicles. Because let's face it, in the US and the UK, people have vehicles on the driving because they can get to where they need to go without it. And if they use it, as you mentioned, they have to pay a toll. So we'll get there, but we understand we have to fix the transportation first before you start pushing tools on roads and this type of thing. Because that will just make cost of living higher.
Okay, before you go, there's somebody with their hand on.
No, just commenting on what he said. I'm not making no strong point. But by observation, while the officer is saying the police is reluctant in some areas, if you don't know, the riders on the bus, the young people don't want to ride the bus with decent music. It's the dirty word music bus they love. And that's where they clamor to go.
Good night to everyone. In St. Mark's, over the past year or so, we have a number of projects that had been earmarked to start. And I don't know for what reason those projects can start. For example, you have, I know you have a road in Cow Hill in Duquesne. They say that's supposed to start. Budget come, budget go, nothing's been done to that road. You know, all the time, also there's another community road. Those roads are extremely bad. How people passing, I don't know. And every day they quarreling, they asking me, when will you do the road? When are you going to do that road? So, I don't know. I want to ask a question. If you budget something for 1 year and it's not being done, what happens for the next year?
But if the allocation is there and unused, if it is that the minister or the legal secretary is going to be put into the other year, then that will happen to move to the next year. But again, it depends on, I guess, the priorities at the time. There also could be a case, I'm not saying that this is the case, but there could be a case where you may have had to reallocate because you needed funds for something else. For example, Hurricane Beryl came, so you have to reallocate the funds from one place to another. So in that case, the allocation was spent elsewhere. I'm not saying that's what happened, I'm just saying you asked what the possible reasons, I'm telling you what the reasons could be. I'm not sure about why, what the project you're speaking about.
Yeah.
Did not
I know. But Barry bring money to us, man. We don't have to get money from nowhere for Barry. We get a lot of money from Barry. Okay, the next issue I have is farm roads. Farmers are balling in local towns. And Barry make it worse because a lot of farmers had been impacted and lost a lot of crops. But the roads are in deplorable condition. We need government to do something about farm road. If we can do 2 in a parish, St. Mark's, you do 2 in St. Mark's, 2 in St. Patrick, 5 in Grenville, but start to do something on the roads, farm roads. Because, look at it now, we can get no bananas, we can get no fruits, and people are balling. Rice is getting scarce. And, well, the food from the land is better food to eat anyway. You figure no glogo and citrus. Okay? And the next thing concerning farmers, we come back to vehicles. Where we complain a lot of vehicles are coming in, and it could be congestion. But I understand farmers getting concession on vehicles under 5 years and new vehicle. What do you want to go in a farm? You might want a vehicle under 5 years old, you might want a vehicle 6, 7, 8 years old. Why can't you give him concession on that vehicle? Right? Because nowadays in this modern world, to do agriculture, you must have a means of transportation, really. And I think a vehicle is key to assisting farmers in production. So basically, these are 2 points I want to raise for the moment.
All right, thank you very much. I know the police officer had her hand up and she may want to leave.
So you take the point on the, so you said you prefer farmers get concession on vehicles older than 5 years as well. That's the suggestion. Yeah? Okay. But I want to also clarify something you said. Yeah, so you want, just for the farmers, you're saying you hope that you will get concessions.
Keeping up to the standard in relation to charging persons for offense that has been committed. But first of all, in relation to obscene language, remember there is a word annoyance. The word annoyance. Sometimes you could be a police officer and obscene language could be using and then it will not annoy you. So maybe you might just speak about it, but a charge may not be preferred in relation to the word that was used. So in relation to obscene language, the word annoyance should be in effect, should be a charge. Obscene language. So majority of the times, offense being committed, officers know they're wrong. And if a complaint is not being made, eventually, how that would work?
Yes, but may I just respond to you? Yes, annoyance is critical to prove obscene language. But the mere fact that somebody going to report that, it means that the person is annoying.
I just said sometimes it's not being reported to the police.
And even if that is not so, even if somebody, because obviously the police will not be everywhere at all times, but the police hears music on the buses. I don't want to go into
Yeah, I'm going to because the thing about it, all police are different, right? Because music, as this officer they know right now, as I told him, and I told them that this loud music, we will not contain it in relation to the part of Victoria. So from last week, persons
but that is one portion of the law that we have announced, right?
Okay. Yeah.
There is a portion that is under the regulation talking about to the announce of any person. But there's another section in the law and the road traffic act that deal with music, loud music. We'll take the speakers, take the system.
So in terms of the budget, right? We're talking about the issue with the noise and so on. Should we increase the fine? Is that what you're suggesting as a means of deterrence and also raise revenue for government?
Well, as I said, in every way possible, as long as things to be done and revenue to be coming in.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you for that. Andy?
We have to find different ways of dealing with the youth now, because if you understand, look at the whole surrounding. Before, we had big people smoking. Now, you have more than 90%, maybe 99.9% that is smoking weed, right? So we have to put things in place to deal with those youths now. It's not like before. It's not like before. Right now we have different classes going on for youths, and they might still getting a stipends and to be something, to be yourself, to be somebody in your community. And still for some of them don't go in. So it just as some of them just oversee, or they have boot camp and so on. You have to find ways. Not every time you have to be treating us, making them feel nice, coming class, paying. No, sometimes they have to get hard treatment. I don't say just jailing, but they might go in that person's benefit and good treatment. It's like they want to come back again. Everything nice. We have to find ways of dealing with those youth selling. Everything's changed. This is computer time now. You have computer children. They bring everything totally different now. Secondly, no. You go into the market. You go into the market and buy vegetable. And you wonder what's going on. You go and have any standard and price on vegetable and thing. If I want to sell my fig for $10 a pound, I sell it for $10. If I want to sell my thing, even the corn, them farmers planting corn, they sell it for you for $2, but you only go buy the $5, $6. There's a lot of things we have to, the government have to look at a lot of things. A lot of the other things, because it's killing us. It's killing us. We buying this thing and we still losing. Sometimes you buy it and good. The government had to put things in place there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that. So you spoke about regulating price on agricultural products, as well as new programs that can get our youth back on track. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, good night. I must say though that I was taken a little bit by surprise tonight. I had no idea that this meeting was in fact taking place here. Only when I called Lex this afternoon, he told me that there was a meeting here. Nevertheless, I'm here. Of course, while I'm not prepared to deal with a number of issues, there are certain points, a couple of points that I wish to raise, because I'm in St. Mark's, and St. Mark's over the years has been known to, as one brother mentioned earlier, to be at the back burner for decades, you know, and a number of issues confront the people of St. Mark's, and budget come and budget go. In fact, that's the first time I'm speaking basically in a budget consultation, really. But many times you speak at those events, or listen to people speak and so on, and at the end of the day, most of what you say remain in the room where you say it, so it doesn't go anywhere. nevertheless, people have to speak and will speak. All right, and I want to just touch on St. Mark's need more sustainable projects. We have most of the people in St. Mark's today, up to today, wait annually on a travel, what you call travel. Right? The annual thing, Christmas coming, Carnival coming, and they wait on the government to give them. And while the people might say, look, you gotta get up and get, you know, government has been placed there for a purpose and so on, and they, in most cases, you know, are given a mandate to assist or to help the people and so on. I'm not sure that we have seen that in a number of cases, right? So I would hope that in this budget cycle that something is there, something is in place to assist people on a more sustainable basis in St. Mark. Right? I know the guys, for instance, we have young people in Waltham. Those guys are seriously involved in fishing. And for months, or for years for that matter, they have been clamoring for a botting area, right? For the catch. I mean, they have been doing excellent, you know, over the years. In fact, they are maybe on par with what happened in Guam, but they're struggling, you know, and they have been making claims for years, and to date, their claims have basically been falling on deaf ears. So I really hope that this time around, that something will be done to assist those fishermen, not only in Waltham, but Victoria, Duquesne, those areas there that need that people making an effort to help themselves. And of course, they need government assistance to get to the next level. All right? In the area of sports and so on, there are a number of areas there. We have one playing field basically functioning in St. Mark. And there are attempts, or there was attempts, to get a second playing field up in the north of St. Mark's, Samaritan. And that playing field would have started way before Hurricane Ivan. They built, one government went ahead and put what I would call it a monument, I don't know what it is now, you know, in the mountain up there, in Bel Air. You know, that place continue, to have maybe animals, and it's a place that could be put into use. And we're talking about sustainable growth and areas that could help people advance themselves. So it could be put into some kind of use that could assist the young people, right? And so those are the areas that I'm speaking about. Things that could help people to help themselves, you know. And this building there that has been there to looking at to me just vacant land, because the playing field, government would have spent millions on that particular playing field up in Samaritan. And to date, nothing can happen there. Nothing can take place there. And I don't know if this government is, I think, if their machine is still working. But basically, it's just there. And it's a building, nice building, just basically a waste of time. Yes? So my final point has to do with the market, what we call Victoria, the market in Victoria. People continue to sell their vegetable and other agricultural product under a building on the side of the road. I mean, Victoria St. Mark's is part of Grenada, you know. And if you want to help people develop, I mean, and they say presentation says a lot. If I'm going to buy a particular product, how it is presented, how it looks to me, is it turn me off or attract me to buying it? And if I want to buy vegetable, I don't pass in Victoria, no. I pass the street because it's under the little building there. Yeah, under that building there. We have places that could be put into use to assist these people. To assist these people. So I'm hoping that, and as I said before, a lot of the time when you come to those functions, you talk and so on, it remain here. But while this is the first time I'm speaking in a forum like this, I hope that it would fall on air that would bring some kind of effect or some kind of result to what I've just said. I thank you so much.
In reference to what Ms. Deborah has spoken vividly, I know the government will spend an excessive amount of money because just where they're selling in front of the market is inside there. And I don't know why they're not getting inside the well, but it's where you could get best result. Yes? I don't know if they're evading the fees, but money was spent by a contractor, Selvin Peters. The government spent a lot of money there. So just where he's speaking right there in front there, they could go inside. I don't know. I am not involved in that. Yeah? Also, the brother Rose spoke of, the youths and what. I would have suggested to one of those people that deal with the delinquents, the alternative sentencing. So rather you taking them and send them in jail for taxpayers' money to go down the drain again. We have some lands in Bukit there. We have a supposed to have an organization. They have about 7 acres of land. They send them there and pay them. Instead of they going to prison for child maintenance, send them up there and use the same money. Go directly to the woman that they have the child with. The alternative sentencing. I see that way. So this is a recommendation that could work, and in that way you can provide ready employment in a place that is, people balling.
Very good suggestions. Thank you. Mr. Paul?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good night, everybody. My name is Raphael Paul. I want to go back to where we started tonight, just momentarily. Because when I received the promotional flyer that was circulated, could have been, was it yesterday? I shared it around as I usually do with things like that. Just as I had done with the book issue that you had sent to me. And the response I received from somebody is, somebody from St. John's. I ain't bothering to go to that because, it's a waste of time. They already know what they're going to do and so on. These exercises are a waste of time. So this may be a contributing factor to why that sentiment is out there in the public domain. And this may be a contributing factor why people do not put themselves out to come to this event. Question. The issue of the minimum wage, is that supposed to have impacted on all workers, like cleaners in the schools and all of that? Because I was speaking with a cleaner who is a mother and have very serious challenges. She has 2 children in secondary school, I think. I think both of them are in secondary school now. And she's saying that that increase has not been reflected in her wages. And she had a health challenge with one of the children that she had to take to Barbados and it has depleted her savings. And as a consequence of that health situation, she had to even take out a loan. So now that when her wages come, by the time the repayment for the loan comes out of it, she doesn't have anything to go by, anything of consequence to go by. And the child who's going to secondary school in Shaper, he has to get $20 a day. Okay? So that's $400 a month. So she says that by the end of the month, what she's actually getting, because it's $100 a week, yeah? She's getting $20 a day. That's $100 a week. That's $400 a month. So what she's actually getting is, yeah? Mr. Richardson, he beat me to it with the fisherman's issue. I was in a conversation with the fishermen just recently. I had visited with them on one occasion a while back. And he's correct too. Reportedly right now, reportedly at this juncture, Waltham is landing more fish than Gove. Yeah? Gove has the label and the reputation as the fishing capital. But reportedly, Waltham is actually landing more fish than Gove. And he mentioned about the boating, yeah? It's amazing to see how they have to function, because they have that slipway. And when some of the boats come up and the others come, they have to pack both inside a boat. In addition to that, there's a beach there that's, a public beach that people need access to. And it becomes a serious challenge for members of the community in order to go down to the beach and so. So that is something that needs to, yeah. The market, the facility there itself, given the amount of fish that they're catching, it's totally inadequate. When you have certain amount of fish that's been caught, just them moving around inside a day is a problem. As you know, for the fish that has to be exported, it must be kept at a certain temperature, to maintain certain quality. They do not have appropriate storage, so they have to ice the fish in bins, and that's out in the elements. You know how hot the sun has been. Okay, there's an ice machine that is inadequate in terms of providing the quantity of ice that they need, so they have to go out of St. Mark to get ice. And as a consequence of that, the amount of ice that they have to use. One of the things they've requested is the building of a shed. They believe that a shed could help to mitigate with the quantity of ice that they would need to buy. And in addition to that, the shed will provide shelter for them from the elements when they have to do their lines and so. Because when the sun is too hot, it's a challenge, and then when the rain comes, they can't function. So presently, Mr. Asif Welsh, he's not a fisherman, he's a teacher, but he is the go-to man within that community. And he, because he showed me a picture of that really demonstrates a drawing and so of what a plan was for that operation there. So he, along with the fishermen, are now in the midst of working out the dimensions and so relating to the shed. And by Wednesday next week, they're going to have an estimate and all that kind of thing. So if they were to get assistance with that, that is going to go a long way in the initial stage. Okay? Redmond is an area that produces top quality cricketers. They don't have a playing field, interestingly. And I've been hearing that when the cricket season opens in England, you have cricketers from Redmond who go to play in different leagues and so in England. Yeah? Somebody gave me a report about a young man who's working with some young people up there in terms of developing a cricket team, and they're in need of uniforms, whatever. You know? So you have these issues. The other thing is community-based organizations. If we speaking and we are serious about rural development, and we've heard talk about the economy and the development of the rural economy and stuff like that. If that is going to happen, mention was made about sustainable employment. If we are going to do that, given the fact that every administration would tell you that government cannot employ everybody, so we have to be able to create employment otherwise. You hear a lot of talk when people get on the podium and we have a microphone, and so we talk about our agriculture and the prospects for agro-processing and so, and it sounds good. It sounds encouraging. But if you do not put the appropriate institutional framework in place and have the proper management structure and oversight and so on to make it happen, it'll just become another cliche, really. Okay? So you have that situation, and that has to be addressed, because our community-based organizations are not functioning with any institutional framework of consequence. Our community-based organizations essentially are involved in events. So the time comes and we do an event that we're known to do, and then we go back to sleep. And we have very nice sounding names. And the names of our community-based organizations, if you reflect on the name, the mandate is supposed to include and involve overall community development. But that is not being reflected in the way that they operate and they function. So I think there needs to be some mechanism be put in place to help our community-based organizations to develop the appropriate institutional framework so that we can begin to address some of these things. If you go to a community development report meeting, yes, when you have members from all of the different constituencies reporting, you get reports on lots of infrastructural things, and it tells you that there's a lot happening out there in terms of various infrastructure, in terms of community center, in terms of box drains and slipper drains and this road and that. There's a lot happening at that level. However, community development is much more than that. Community development, in between you get a one-off where you hear there's been a computer training here and there and that kind of thing. But community development, it is something where there has to be a process of engagement with the appropriate stakeholders, because you hear it all the time, and I heard some of it here, some of the social issues and challenges and so that we face. And if we are going to take any meaningful approach in terms of addressing them, then there has to be that level of engagement with the community so that the priority issues can be identified and the appropriate strategic interventions can be put in place so that those issues can be addressed. Otherwise, as I say, it just become another cliche. I have a question that comes from somebody else. They want to know if the whole issue of remittances can be factored into our whole issue of economic planning.
Okay. Thank you very much for
that's all for tonight.
very comprehensive suggestions and position ideas. I wanted to ask you a question with regards to the community groups and organizations. For example, the community organizations, the Grenada Cultural Foundation is responsible for the operations of those groups. Are you suggesting that we relook the way they function in order to provide more strategic support to those groups so that they can be more effective?
Well, I think whoever the appropriate authority is need to sit down with those organizations and do a SWOT analysis. Look at what their strengths are, what the weaknesses are, what opportunities, what threats. Do an analysis of where are you in terms of different elements of what is really required for appropriate management of a community-based organization. So coming out of that, you can make a determination as to the level of function that exists. Like, for example, if you were to say in terms of your management on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? If you were to say in terms of your community outreach on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? So you go through all of those different elements, and then when you sum it up, you can determine, right, based on what the prospect of the sum total can be, you can determine who's functioning at 50%, who's functioning at 75%, who's functioning at, and then you can determine what do we do going forward, because sometimes they have the answers, you know. But sometimes it's because of the lack of motivation. There may be different factors that's responsible for it, but you never know unless you begin to have the conversation.
Okay. So one of the things that I want to put forward is the whole issue of volunteerism, and that has dropped considerably. People are not volunteering to do things. And most of those community groups, people are not being paid to do it. And life has become so busy for a lot of them, with those kind of engagement can be very difficult at times. Additionally, I wanted to ask you with regards to the other types of organizations like that involve in those computer courses that you mentioned and so on. Are you suggesting that government should provide more support to those groups, or not groups, but organizations, say like the Grand Coda and those places, so that they can fulfill their mandate more strategically?
Well, I am saying that one, there need to be a system that looks at the stakeholders that exist within the particular community. So in St. Mark, in St. John, you have the fisher folk, you have farmers, you have youths, you have the different groups of stakeholders. So you sit with them, yeah? You sit with each stakeholder group, and you have the conversation with them that look at those challenges, those community challenges, the challenges that they face specifically as a group. And coming out of the conversations, you will determine what are the priority areas, and then you'll be able to determine what is the appropriate strategic intervention that is necessary in order to address the particular issues. I am not claiming to have the answers.
Okay.
Right? But from what I know as to how these things are done from a community development standpoint, that is the approach, the intervention approach that I know.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Noel?
There's a question that continues to bother me. I don't know when the government was getting ready to put the minimum wage in place, if it was a broad spectrum. If it was a broad spectrum in terms of the implementation and like let me zero in. If a man like with an ordinary man with some lands, and I don't think it's feasible to be able to pay somebody $60 a day. Yes, based on the returns you're getting from that land. So I don't know if it was a process that should have been scaled to suit your enterprise. Because it's right now it's across the board. But how long would a farmer be able to pay somebody $60 a day? I mean, consider it minimum wage, whereas it's small based on the demands in terms of your cost of living and so forth. So I don't know if consideration, if it could be looked at that way. I'm just seeing it as I see it in my naked eyes.
So we take the point. I do think that there needs to be more PR done on the changes in the minimum wage, because it's most times when people hear the minimum wage, they hear $1,200 and then they divide that and they get $60 a day. But there's actually a minimum wage for different industries, and also you probably need to ask yourself the question, what constitutes a day? Because somebody that comes and cut your yard for 3 hours, is that a day? So that's I'm not a lawyer, I'm not in legal affairs, so I can't speak to it per se, but I can say that we can take that back to legal affairs so that we can do some better PR so people can understand better how it should be applied.
Well, that's what food feels, so I don't know how it feels.
All right, thank you. All right, before you, he had his hand up. Okay, yeah.
I'm looking at the road network now, because I think government had to put something in place, especially you're looking at Brisbane side coming up there in the evening time, when everybody home, everybody come from work and everybody home, the whole road is packed. I think government had to put something in place. Either you're building a house, it had to get a garage in any, because how Brisbane situated, it's hard to get a garage. But I think government had to do something in place, put something in place for Brisbane. Either you build a park place for them where you have security, where they have to pay every month, but all these vehicles, and right now you're going to get a lot of more vehicles on the road because everybody wants to buy something now. So the government had to put some park place, has something where they pay by the month, because all these vehicles can be on the road. Secondly, the road network, we have to have excavator, we have a trailer coming with excavator. You have to come down from that bed and drive on the road. I think the time to modernize it, to build a road just where trailer can go in and so on. I think we have to take this thing into consideration. Any road project you have to be able to take a trailer going through with an excavator on it, because it doesn't make sense. You do a road now, excavator to come along and mash up the road again. That's a problem. We just mark inside there. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So we're going to take 2 more points, so our sister there, and 1 more after that, and we're going to end.
Someone sent me this question, so I'm just going to read it from my phone. They're asking, is there any community tourism / nature tourism investment and development project by government or government incentive for such projects for the parish of St. John, St. Patrick's, and St. Mark? That's it. For tourism, nature, tourism investment.
Okay, so basically the person is suggesting that we have. I don't know if
If you all have it in the budget. No. Or any incentive, for that.
There are incentives for projects, but I can't tell you that I know of a project now in any of those projects that is tourism, like community tourism related. It may have. I don't have knowledge of it, I can say. I know last year in the consultation, I believe it was here, yes, we spoke about having something done with Rainbow Falls because it's become an attraction. I don't know if that has gotten any traction, but we can also raise it again this year. to have some, because I actually was going to ask that question because we're speaking about sustainable employment. So I was going to ask the question, what areas, because I picked up fishing, I picked up farming, so I wanted to ask if there were any tourism related areas as well that we would like.
And as she spoke about it, because what she just read there was also sent to me.
Okay.
But there is something, is a pet project of mine that I really want to speak to.
Okay.
Yeah?
And there's also, hold on, and there's also sports. So I picked up 4.
Yeah.
So areas that I think are key that we mentioned here that we want some development in St. Mark in those areas.
This is an idea that sometimes your newspapers slash and dash away, but I prefer to stay silent with this one. But there's a gentleman that is about to purchase some land somewhere in Tufton North, and I will sell my idea to him in that respect. Community tourism, I would sell it. I don't know if I'll get the right price, but I will sell the idea. But he's about to invest in some lands of their community development, tourism. My place was supposed to be the Garden of Eden, so I don't know what name, but I will sell the idea to him.
Okay, we have 2 more. Yes, Mr. Paul, and then we'll go to.
On the tourism issue, just 2 Saturdays ago, there was a major cleanup of Duquesne Beach. That was spearheaded by the Ministry of Health. And the Chief Health Officer was also present. And he too recognized that Duquesne lends itself to the development of a very viable visitor attraction site. Yeah? Duquesne lends itself to that. We already have the petroglyph, which is supposed to be one of our national tourist attractions, but it's not very attractive right now. It needs some upgrade. That is something that needs to be done. Otherwise, we should stop promoting it as an attraction, because I can tell you right now, it is not attractive. Apart from the plaque or whatever that's there that says whatever, the item itself is not very attractive right now. It doesn't have any appeal. Some work needs to be done on it. But apart from that, the beach itself, the lagoon at the top, just recently the lagoon was being used to train people in swimming, to train some of our lifeguards and stuff like that. So that environment really lends itself to the development of a visitor attraction that can have major spin-offs for income generation and stuff like that. And fortunately, and very encouragingly, the chief health officer, Mr. Hazard, he recognizes it for what it is. So there's conversations going forward now as to how you work with the community in terms of doing what is appropriate. So it would be good to have the support and the backing at that level. At the sporting level, and we spoke about the delinquent youths and so, there was a conversation I had with one of our young coaches here. He coaches one of the schools. And he wanted to get some equipment because he was sitting in a place one day and he saw this gathering of these young people and what they were getting into. He reached out to one of his colleagues and they reached out to me and said, is there anything that can be, so can you arrange so that you can get some cones and whatnot that you can start to work with them, That was never really fulfilled. Yeah? And I can tell you, recently I went to, there's a an event that takes place at the Resource Center on a Wednesday afternoon now with Dr. Chaitan, with some of these young people. And I went there, and it was something else to see about 20, how many of them. And some of them, they are there because they have court matter and whatever and whatever. I don't know for sure what's going to happen after the Dr. Chaitan program, what plans they have for them. And some of those youths were some of the same ones who that coach guy had wanted to begin to work with. You know? So.
Thank you. So we...
I just want to make a comment on that. Mr. Thomas said, concerning the same coaching, there's a ongoing coaching session with Denver. Denver has a club. There are children who he coaches from Bonnet School and Samaritan School and in the community that comes to him. So there's a structured program in place. So if anybody wants to join that club, Denver is there. So Welsh, every day he's at the park to coach that trainer there. So there's an ongoing one here. A recognized coaching session.
Thank you. Alma?
My contribution is there's a road that starts from it starts from Walton School, and it can take you right up to the top of Resource. It reached a certain part, I think it's after Brother George Land, and maybe, reaching Castle Hill. And they just stop there. And they reach at the top of, by Farrow and Lowland in Resource, and nothing, and that's a feeder road. There are farmers there, they cannot get in, they cannot get out. For instance, when they had all the slides at Waltham, after St. Mark's Sec, that road they would have been able to use it if it was completed as a secondary road. And for years, they just reached Castle Hill, and that's it.
So we'll take that one. One more, last one. Okay. Okay. Just wait for the microphone.
Is there a process for the parliamentary representative to submit a project proposal for the inclusion in the 2025 budget? And is there a deadline? Is there a similar process for citizens and groups to submit projects for inclusion in the 2025 budget? If yes, what are the guidelines and deadlines?
Well, I'll answer the second part first, is what we're doing now. So the consultation part is for the general public. So you have this forum here. You can also attend any of the others, because we have planned in other parishes as well. There's the one in St. Andrews tomorrow. Then St. George's is on Tuesday, and Karakou. Well, I don't expect you to go to Karakou, but Karakou is on what? Monday. And then we also have a national consultation plan as well, and there's also a youth consultation plan. I'll get the dates to tell you before the end. So there are various places that you can go to give it. You can also do it online, as we mentioned, on www.finance.gd. So that's an online way that you can do it. And we actually plan to stream all of the consultations, including the national one, so you can also make the contribution in the chat if you like. So you have different ways you can give the contribution. In terms of the parliamentary reps, they do have the opportunity as well in their cabinet meetings. So we give our feedback from the consultations, but they also have their own meetings So we bring it to cabinet, but they also have their own internal meetings, so they can also bring projects there. And afterwards, we go through a process of evaluating, because obviously our budget is a finite thing. There's a certain amount of funds. So there is a process of prioritizing, I'll be frank, what project can actually make it into a budget in a particular year. So if something doesn't happen, it doesn't necessarily mean that the representative did not bring it forward. It just meant that it did not make it in for that year.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy PS, for answering this question. And just to come to an end to our session this evening, I will review some of the points that was raised. First of all, we do record your dissatisfaction with the lack of PR resulting in the poor turnout at the consultation this evening. And we do take on the recommendations that we should use other forms of communicating to the community members about the consultations. I'm going to use some headings. One, the cost of living measures to support greater livelihood, offset cost of living of ordinary citizens, the hardship on the ground, regulating prices charged for agricultural products, minimum wage not being paid or not being felt at certain levels, a certain class of workers, redesigning of social safety nets program to cater for those who are really in need, community development programs and empowerment of community-based organizations, local employment opportunities can be created through those agencies and so on, and some form of assessment or evaluation of the effectiveness of those community groups can be done. The area of youth, a call for greater involvement of the church in the rehabilitation of our young people, development program, alternative sentencing, especially for young people for petty crimes and those kind of things. Revenue generating, a call for mechanism for similar to tithing, 10%. Everybody pays their fair share. Increase the cutoff for age of vehicle imports from 10 to 15 years with an additional levy on older vehicles for revenue generation. Introduction of tolls on major roads to encourage carpooling. Funds collected can be allocated towards road maintenance. Public transportation. We recognize, based on your contribution, that of the challenges being faced with public transportation on the western side, the hostile environment and the bus terminus and other areas, and regulations of the type of music played on public transportation, particularly in presence of children. This can be included in Noise Control Act and Noise Pollution Act. Lack of enforcement of laws by police officers, call for training on interpretation and application of laws, increased fines to road traffic offenses, including amplified music. And one of the things that the police officer mentioned is the amount of police officers they have at the disposal. She had to leave because they short staff, so she mentioned that to me as she was leaving. Infrastructure, unfinished roads, road projects not commenced, more farm roads, repairs needed at St. Mark's Police Station, concerns about poor conditions for vendors at St. Mark's, recommendation to repurpose a building for the use of as a vendor's market, access way needed to beach behind Waltham Fish Market, roadside parking, stipulate garages in building permits and develop community parking facilities with security. I think that was for particularly the Brizan area. Incomplete road which end at Castle Hill couldn't have been used as secondary road during landslides at Waltham. In the area of sports, playing field needed for cricketers and footballers of Red Mud. Playing field with vacant building could be repurposed. The location was where? Samaritan. Utilize sports as a mechanism for properly socializing youth, more coaching sessions. The Blue Economy called for support towards the fishermen of St. Mark facility and equipment upgrades, landing bay, cold storage facility, commercial ice machine. Update needed on previous plans drafted for Waltham Fish Market. And in the area of tourism, community tourism projects and incentives needed, enhancement of local attractions to create employment and generate revenue. Example, Duquesne Beach, including Petro. Oh, okay. All right. So that was a review of the points tonight. Thank you to... Yeah. Okay. So that was notes from Kimika. Thank you from the policy unit. Well, good job. Huh? Yeah, we said that. Yeah, we have it. Okay. Thank you very much, Kimika. And now I hand you over to the Deputy PS to make some closing remarks and to say thank you for being here.
So I'm actually very happy I came here today. I found the discussions actually very enlightening. It was very good. I like the atmosphere and I actually like the round table. I don't know if it was better that we had a small group, because I felt like everybody felt, I mean honest, everyone felt more comfortable to talk. So I liked the conversation and we took notes. Some of the suggestions are low-hanging fruit. We could say that off the bat, that we can try to get those done. Some are a bit more complicated or in-depth and probably need more time to develop, but we'll try to get them in as well. But I would say that we probably can't get everything in for next year, but some I think are actually things that can be done within a year. So we'll try to bring those forward and prioritize them. Some of the issues are economic, but some are social as well. And I think we have to really think about what's causing some of the problems and have programs, not just for youth, because we mentioned the youth, because they have a problem, but what is causing the problem? So we probably need to also have some sort of thing for parents, something in the home, something like that, because you can't just treat the symptom of the problem. So again, that might take a little bit more time to develop, but it's something, because there's a reason why those of us in this room didn't smoke weed and do drugs. There's a reason why, so something is missing now, that's something that we had before is missing now. So I guess we have to figure out what that is, and I take the point that consultation is what is needed. We need to actually talk to people and figure out what's causing it. So it's some social problems as well, but I mean, largely we're economists in here, so we could, the economic ones, we probably figured out how to get it in, but we probably need to have some conversations on the more social end to figure out how to deal with those issues. But I must say thank you for being here. We will try to do better next time with the PR. We were very much time constrained. We understand the merging of the three parishes probably was not the best approach, so we apologize for that. And we hope to do better next year, barring any circumstances, because we really didn't intend to do better this year, but then we had hurricane, and then everything just kind of got, came up upon us quite quickly, to be honest. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. And hopefully next year we actually can say, yes, that somebody suggested we do something with the vehicles, or we do something in the community with the jetty, with you mentioned the refrigerator in Waltham. So these sort of things, we could say that we actually did some of these things. So thank you so much, and get home safely.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, and do have a good night, everybody. And those who have been looking and viewing and listening online, thank you and have a good night. Bye.
Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Inside Finance. As we approach the preparation of the 2025 national budget, the government of Grenada is conducting a series of consultations to ensure the budget reflects the needs of all citizens. Joining me today is none other than the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mike Sylvester. In today's program, we will be discussing the 2025 national budget and how the public can get involved. Mr. Sylvester, welcome to today's program.
Thank you for having me. Good day to you and your audience.
Let's start off with the basics. What is the national budget?
Well, the national budget, also known as the Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure, is a financial plan that outlines government's expected revenues and expenditures for a specific fiscal year to help it achieve its agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvester. Budget consultations are a critical part of the preparation process. But for those who may not be familiar, what exactly are these consultations and why are they important?
The budget consultation process is all about engaging with the public, businesses, civil society, and other stakeholders to gather feedback and insights. We want to ensure that the nation's budget reflects the priorities and needs of the country, not just from the government's perspective, but from the people's as well. By opening up the process, the government is better able to allocate resources and make decisions that can have a real impact on communities.
So how do these consultations actually take place? Is it just a series of meetings, or are there other ways for people to participate?
We're using a multi-pronged approach. Yes, there are formal consultations with key stakeholders, but we're also leveraging digital platforms to engage a broader segment of the population. We've launched an online portal on our website at www.finance.gd, where citizens can submit their proposals and ideas. Additionally, we'll be hosting public forums throughout the country, allowing people to voice their concerns and suggestions directly. This way we ensure that the budget represents the diversity of needs across the country.
It seems the government is trying to make this process a lot more inclusive. But what are the key areas where public input will be most critical for the 2025 budget?
The main areas where we're looking for input includes recovery and reconstruction efforts in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, education and skills development, health and wellness, housing, youth empowerment, job creation, renewable energy development, and cost of living measures, to name a few. The government has made progress in many of these areas, but there are still challenges. And we believe citizens on the ground have valuable insight into how we can improve. For example, in relation to the cost of living, we're asking what more can the government do to reduce the cost of living? Additionally, what more can be done to build resilience in our economy?
One of the concerns people often have is whether their feedback will actually influence the budget. How can you ensure that the public input is not just symbolic?
That's a great question, and I understand why people may feel skeptical. In the past, consultation processes may have seemed distant, but we're changing that. We are working on a feedback mechanism where we can track how ideas are considered. All consultation reports and the Ministry of Finance recommendations will be submitted to the Cabinet for consideration and to inform policy decisions. For example, in the 2024 budget, the no exam upgrade and reducing the age to obtain a D-class license were derived from budget consultations.
Wow, that's reassuring. Now let's talk about some of the challenges the government might face during this process. There are always competing demands. So, how does the government plan to balance the public's input with its fiscal constraints?
It's definitely a balancing act. We need to be realistic about what we can afford, given the country's fiscal position. The key is prioritizing. Not every idea or suggestion can be implemented immediately, but we need to ensure that the most pressing needs are addressed first. We also need to maintain our commitment to fiscal responsibility, which means making tough decisions on where to cut back or how to increase revenue without placing too much burden on the average citizen.
That brings me to a point about revenue. As you gather input, is the government also open to ideas about how to generate more revenue? Especially considering the rise in demands for spending on things like infrastructure and social programs.
Yes, absolutely. We're looking for innovative ideas not just on spending, but also on revenue generation. In fact, we've been asking for suggestions on how to broaden the tax base in a fair way, or introduce new forms of revenue that won't negatively impact low and middle income households. For instance, we have received suggestions about closing potential revenue loopholes in the yachting sector.
Referring back to renewable energy development, is the government open to feedback on this?
Yes, renewable energy is a major focus for 2025. And we're keen to hear from the public on how the government can accelerate renewable energy development in our electricity and transport sector.
This all sounds very comprehensive. So tell me, how did the economy perform this year?
2023 was a good year for Grenada. Our economy grew by 4.7%, which is strong. For 2024, we're estimating growth of 3.9%, driven mainly by tourism, wholesale and retail trade, and manufacturing. However, sectors like agriculture and fishing were affected by Hurricane Beryl. But the good news is that rebuilding efforts will help boost these areas in the coming year.
Earlier on, you indicated that the cost of living will be a key focus area for the 2025 budget. At this time, can you tell us about the general trend in prices?
Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices of goods and services in an economy rises over time, leading to a decrease in the purchasing power of money. While inflation has continued to decline, the price of food remains high. The government will continue to monitor inflation closely and take action as necessary to keep inflation low and stable.
And what can you tell us about government's finances?
Well, government's fiscal position was negatively impacted by the passage of Hurricane Beryl. However, government's finances remain strong. The relief provided on free barrels and building materials will negatively affect revenues, while the increased spending related to Hurricane Beryl recovery will result in higher expenditure. That notwithstanding, the government will be able to meet all its obligations in 2024.
Before we wrap up, what is your message to the public as the government prepares the 2025 national budget?
My message is quite simple. This is your budget. The decisions we make today will affect our economy, our communities, and our future. We need your input to make sure we're addressing the real needs of the people. I encourage everyone to participate, whether by attending a forum, submitting your ideas online, or engaging in discussions with your community. Every voice matters.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvester, for sharing these insights. It sounds like the government is really committed to making this a people-driven process. And that concludes our discussion on the upcoming 2025 National Budget Consultations. If you want to get involved, visit the government's online portal or attend one of its public forums near you. This is your chance to help shape the future of our country. Thank you very much for watching and have a good night. See you next time on Inside Finance.